Hi. Okay, we are here. We are doing a live Q&A. I'm working on a big project right now, but I'm here and I'm just going to take live questions today. So I didn't have anything to arrange or figure out ahead of time. So hopefully some people will show up, but hey, we'll take time to answer all of your questions, or not all of them, but as many as we can get to today for those of you who are watching. So if you don't know me, if you're new here, I am Dana K. White. I'm the author of Decluttering at the Speed of Life, How to Manage Your Home Without Losing Your Mind, and Organizing for the Rest of Us. So I teach decluttering strategies from the perspective of someone to whom this stuff does not come naturally. Like that's my angle, is that I had to dig my way out of my clutter, and I share what I've learned. And it turns out that it works for a lot of other people too, because I don't make up fancy methods. I've just figured out what does work, and I just teach that. Okay. So, yay. Oh, you have all the books over on Audible. Thank you. Thank you so much. I didn't know what a good combination my content and audio would be, because it just makes sense that you can listen while you work. So I love hearing that. Okay, if you would like to ask a question today, go ahead and ask your question in the comments. Put question marks at the beginning just so that I can see really easily when I'm glancing over there on my screen. It's over here, so that I can see really easily that it's a question, right? Because I know you guys talk among each other and all that kind of stuff. So let's see. Yay. Y'all let me know if you have questions. I know. See, this is the reason why I normally do that. If for future lives, if you're watching this in the future, I do generally answer questions that have been submitted ahead of time at askdanakWhite.com. So that is a way, if you're not able to make these live, I mean, I know, we can't all do Tuesdays at lunch, but some of you can, but you would be able to ask a question that I could answer in a future one. Let's see. Thanks for answering my Q last week and directing me to your step 4 decluttering questions video for details. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you, when I read your thing, just right in this moment right here, I went 4 decluttering questions. No, it's only 2. Oh, you meant step 4, the 2 decluttering questions. Got it. I am so glad that was helpful to you. That's why I made those. So, all right, I'm here and I have a question. Yay, Joe. I have a room that is so full, I can just open the door. I can't do the take it there now process, as I can't even get into that room yet. Where to start? Okay, such a great question, because I know in this situation, it feels so daunting. It just feels like, what in the world am I supposed to do here? Like, what? No, okay. And you get the value of the take it there now, but it feels impossible. I want to remind you that if the room is so full that you can only open the door, you can't actually go into it, go ahead and start getting it into your head that, and I know you know this, but just remind yourself, stuff is going to have to leave my house. Like, this is not a matter of if I could just get all that stuff in that room that is so much stuff I can only open the door, I can't even go inside. It's not a matter of getting it organized, right? It is a matter of decluttering, which, if you're familiar with me, I am all about decluttering. I thought, when my house was a complete disaster, I had rooms like this, that my goal was to be organized, that the thing I needed was to be organized. I thought I was giving up, and then I was like, I don't even have it in me to get organized. That's just too overwhelming. I'm just going to declutter. Y'all, decluttering is the thing that changed my home. Getting stuff out of the house changed my home. Okay. So while you're thinking of the take it there now, what you need to be even going back into the very first steps of the 5-step process. Okay. With trash and donations. I know that's step 1 and step 3, but the beauty of those 2 steps is that you literally don't even have to move anywhere. You are just looking for trash, sticking it in the trash bag or the recycling bin, whatever you have available already. Okay, we're not going to start a new routine now. And donations that can go straight into the donate box. Okay. There is no need to get anywhere when you are doing that, because the final destination is right where you're standing with your trash bag, recycling bin, and donatable donate box. Okay. So really, really focusing on that with this mentality that stuff is going to have to leave my house. Now, I'm not saying to say, oh no, then that she's saying I've got to donate things that I don't want to donate. I really do. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is look for trash and say, with the mentality that stuff's going to have to leave my house, sometimes that will make something that otherwise looks like a really great project of such and such that my friend was going to throw away. And then I said, no, I'll take that. I'll fix that someday. When you have the mentality that I've got to have less stuff in my house so that I can get past this point right here that I'm at, that's very overwhelming, and that means I have to get stuff out. It means that that item that was fixable but never got fixed suddenly becomes obvious trash. Okay. But don't take the time to analyze and examine. If you can't, if you're like, oh, but I really do think I'm going to, if I could just get this space under control, that's not what I'm talking about. But look, say, is there any trash in here? And see if with that mentality that things need to leave my house, if that makes more obvious trash obvious to you. Okay. Look for donations. See if there's anything that is easy that you can see without getting into the space, because you can't get into there. And we're definitely not going to pull everything out, because my guess is if you're in this situation, you've probably done the pull everything out thing before. And in my own personal experience, the way that rooms got like this was because of other pull it all out scenarios where I had thought I was going to declutter. I pulled everything out of a room. I put back the things I wanted. I was completely overwhelmed by the pile in the hallway, and then I shoved it in that other room over there. And that's how that room turned into what it was. Okay. So, but look in this space and say, okay, is there anything that is easy, that has an established home somewhere else in the house, not in this room, that I can remove from this space and go take that there right now? Even though I can't get into this room, I can go take this to its home. And then I'm going to face the reality of that space and all that kind of stuff. So just going through that, just those first 3 steps reduce the amount of stuff. They give you some space to start to work. And there need to be a lot of trash and donations because of this situation. Okay. So be thinking along those lines, and then going with, okay, then everything in here is, everything I can see. I don't see any trash. I don't see any donations. I don't see anything easy. Okay. Item by item, take something out and say, if I needed this item, where would I look for it first? And if it's a space other than this room, you're going to take it there right now, because then you're reducing and reducing and reducing the amount of things in this space. Okay. It's little by little, but it's how you make real, sustainable, unbacktrackable decluttering progress. Unbacktrackable is the key, right? That's the key. Yes. Let's see. I almost can complete a task, but fall short. When I do that, the room gets messy very quickly again. The last of the decisions are the hardest and trip me up. Is there any way to get around that? Absolutely. So I remember that what I teach is the no mess decluttering process. Okay. So, and I never know like what people, because I mean, some of y'all's names I recognize and stuff like that, but in the moment while I'm here just talking on the internet, I don't generally have time to register anything. But so I don't know where you are in familiarity with my method, right? So what I'm hearing you say is exactly what I used to experience. I was like, I would get started on a space, and in the beginning I was like, woohoo, I could do this. And then I would get to this point where I was like, I don't know what to do with all these last little things. I don't know what to do with these. And so then I would just kind of stop. And a lot of times those last little things were kind of spread out and everything now, because I've done the pull it all out everything. But I had to come up with a way for that to not be the way things went for me, right? And the way that I came up with, the thing I came up with was asking the 2 decluttering questions. That is how I avoid what you're saying, okay? Now, along these lines, though, you have to remember that when I say the no mess decluttering process, I mean the process where we count less as success. instead of being done, right? Like instead of it, I'm going to consider myself successful if in the moment when I get distracted or I have to walk away or I have to leave, this space has less than it did before I got started. Okay. That is success. This space is better than it was when I started. That is my goal. So finishing is obviously that is the end goal, but every time I'm working in the moment, I remind myself that my goals right now are less and better. Now, following the whole 5-step process all the way through to the end is going to take care of all of these issues that you're having. But even if I don't get to that last step today, I'm still going to feel successful because the space has less in it than it did before I started, and it's better than it was before I started. Okay. But the way that we make these decisions, okay, is not by trying to figure out where something goes. Okay. It's instead asking myself, oh, look at this. I literally have fingernail clippers. This is always the example I use because this is the example when I came up with these questions. Okay. If I needed fingernail clippers, where would I look for them first? That is how I go item by item with these things I don't know what to do with them. I'm not going to make decisions. I am going to identify the place where this thing needs to go. Okay. Now, if I already knew where it went, that's not what we're talking about here. That left in the easy stuff, things that have established homes. I'm talking about if I truly don't know where this thing goes, it doesn't have an established home, where would I look for this first? Not confident it's going to be there, but where would I go first when I'm like, oh, where's my fingernail clippers? Okay, that is the thing. So that's how I make the decision about all of these things. And if I can't answer that, then I ask my second decluttering question. If I needed this item, if I needed fingernail clippers, would it ever occur to me that I already had fingernail clippers? Or would I go out and buy more fingernail clippers? Or would I, just gnaw my fingernail off, whatever? Obviously, I would think that. Okay, so this would not be that. But if it was something where I couldn't answer that first question, then I have to be honest with myself and say, I wouldn't even go looking for this. I would do without, which is great, or I would go buy another one, which is bad, because then that brings in another of this item that I didn't even know was in my house, right? So then I'm even more overwhelmed and I'm trying to get rid of stuff in this house. So those two questions will take you through every last thing, knowing that you're going one item at a time, final decision by final decision, acting on the final decision so that you are making progress at all times. Okay. So that's how we do that. So yeah, I would say, and here's one of the things too, is a lot of times people will take a little bit here and there and they're like, I'm getting really stuck in this one place. Work on a space and say, I'm going to actually truly follow the 5-step process on this space. Okay. Now I have videos where I talk about that. I have a 30-minute video. I don't know. It's always being watched. And so, but I know I think it's the no mess decluttering process demonstration. I think that's what it's called. But it's my 30-minute video where I go through the whole process, follow the process and say, okay, I am going to go from the beginning, starting with trash, blah, 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 all the way through to the end, embracing the reality of the space, getting rid of my least favorites until it fits functionally, going all the way through the 5 steps. And then I think you're going to get to the point where you're like, oh, this is the step that solves this issue that I've been facing. Okay. All right. Where do I start in a new space that doesn't have established homes yet? Yeah, that's fantastic. I went through this in my own house when we moved. Okay. So I had never looked for anything in this house. It is the same question. If I needed my fingernail clippers in this new house, where would I look for them first? And it's the instinct, and it's going on that instinct and embracing it. It is also making sure that you are actually answering it by instinct and not answering it as trying to solve a problem and come up with the very best place in this house. Okay. But really going with that instinct, it's incredibly powerful. What is a good way to organize a loft? I'm currently flooring mine, so I'll have storage space. How do I organize the space so items are safe from condensation, etc.? It feels like, are you talking about what I would call an attic, maybe? Sounds like, okay. I know with using the S in organize that I'm guessing you're talking about an attic. Anyway, I am not really the person for this because I'm about decluttering as opposed to how to store stuff. But I would say to look into like specifically containers that are actually for that, type of space. That's all I would say there. Okay. Let's see. I'm making progress decluttering, but I'm replacing the stuff that I now know I love and actually use. How do I fight the urge to replace my stuff? Example, got rid of shoes, then replaced them. I mean, if you got rid of shoes and you actually decided that I actually did need that specific kind of shoes, and so you got another pair, the way to not have it make you back into a clutter situation would be that, okay, well, these were important enough to me that I am actually going to go buy that kind of shoe again and bring them into my house. But that also shows they really deserve space. So what in here does not deserve space? What in here did I think was better than that? But it turns out it's not. Those need to go. So like one in, one outing as you bring those in. And then also use this as, a lot of times I use things as, you know what? I just paid, $35 to replace this item. And it's a learning experience, right? Like it's a learning experience. And maybe you're at this point where you are able to identify what's really important to you because of the decluttering you've done. I used to not know which things were my favorites because I had so much stuff. I had so many choices that I couldn't register what my favorites were. But when I narrowed it down and made my massive stuff so much less overwhelming, I realized, oh, yeah, those are the plates. That's the mug that I go back to all the time. And it was like I had less stuff, so I could keep it under control more easily. And the more under control it was easily, meaning not just everything is strewn everywhere, and I always actually know where things are, then I identify the thing that is favorite to me first. Okay. Let's see. But I guess what I'm saying there is like, I get the feeling of like, oh no, but I always try to use that as, you know what? Feeling that way is learning. I'm learning something. And so I'm like, I get it now. This pair that I have replaced is, now I really have placed value upon this item. And I always say that even when I do have to replace something in the future, the money that I pay for it, I'm like, you know what? That $35, which some of y'all are like, $35 shoes, who, whatever. Some of y'all think that's too expensive and some of y'all think that's nothing, right? I get it, right? So I don't even know right now, off the top of my head, how much shoes cost, right? All kinds of different ones. But that $35 that I am paying is money that I spent on this space being under control between the time that I worked on it and now. And the space being under control has helped me understand what I actually do and don't need, because there's probably a lot of other stuff that you've gotten rid of that you aren't replacing, right? And so it all kind of evens out, I feel like. Okay. Let's see. Your dishwasher video was so helpful. Who knew the power wash button would make my life so much easier? Everybody listening to this, listen to Martha, okay? I'm the same way. I don't know why I always ran everything on normal. Like, why did I do that? I'm not normal, so why Like, dishes to be washed normal. No, this is one of the main things that that I learned when I visited the Maytag labs. I think it's been like 10 years ago now, but I was like, oh, those buttons are there for a reason, you know, because I talked to the actual people who designed the things, and they were like, yeah, they're there for a reason. Push all the buttons and go do the research if you're worried about how much extra energy that takes and stuff. It's minuscule. And when I started to realize my dishes are so much cleaner because I go ahead and do this, it is worth the extra like penny or whatever, don't quote me, that it costs for me to use the more powerful setting. And also, realistically, if my dishes weren't getting clean before, then I'm using more water to try to then get them, you know, perfect. See, so it all evens out. How do I purge through paperwork and clothes? Okay, so I have videos on both of these things. I have a video on using my 5-step no mess decluttering process on clothing. Okay, it can feel a little bit weird at sometimes because you're like, oh, where would I look for this first? Well, of course I would look for this here first, you know, so, but it still works. So, you know, follow the 5-step process. Trash with clothing is going to be stuff that is like, of course, I don't wear that because it is ruined. I was mad that it was ruined. And so I put it into my closet thinking it was going to suddenly not be ruined anymore. But it's, you know, so it's like identifying that, going through the 5 steps on that. Same thing with paper. So paper is overwhelming. Just by definition, it feels like it's all important. But the reality is that a lot of times with paperwork, other things get stuck in that pile that shouldn't, okay? And then are actually trash. But now the pile's bigger, so it feels like it's even more important stuff to go through. So it's going through that 5-step process, which takes you from being completely overwhelmed to, okay, I think I can do this. You know, go through it, look for, give yourself permission to just look through the papers and say, if I find any trash, obvious trash, I will pitch that, okay? But if I don't, you know, I'm probably not going to find any trash, but even just doing that will help you go through the process. I also have a video on how I conquered paper clutter. So you can go look at that one. Let's see. And I think part of the thing here is that paperwork and clothes, those are overwhelming things. Surely the process couldn't work on that. It does. It works on that. It works on that. Okay. 5-step process. If you ever want a printable of the 5-step process, go to aslobcomesclean.com/5, F-I-V-E, sign up for my free newsletter, and you can get a printable of that. It's also in great detail in Decluttering at the Speed of Life, and also here, you know, in videos and stuff too. Relocating the kids' toys. Do I use the take it there now part to actually move them, then the container method to fit them in, or is it better to declutter before or after moving them? Go through the 5-step process, because what that will do is, when so many times it's like, oh, well, that's toys over there and I need to move over here. So wait, like in this space right here where they are now, start with the trash. Look for trash. There's no trash. There's trash, especially with kid stuff, right? Like it might be something that's broken, or wow, I forgot that pinches my kid's finger every time they use it because such and such broke off. That's trash. We're not even going to donate that because we don't want it to happen to another kid, right? So, you know, look for trash. Look for easy stuff. Is there anything in this, you know, mass of kids' toys that's actually like my Tupperware I've been looking for, or, you know, the wooden spoon or whatever. Dress up clothes. They're actually my shoes I've been looking for, whatever. So we take those, we take the easy stuff out, we get that, so that by the time we are moving it to the space, we've already gotten rid of the stuff that doesn't need to be here, right? So we're not moving all the stuff that would never need to go into the new container. So go through that process to make sure that you've eliminated anything that's a dead donation or trash or easy stuff. And then take that stuff to the place now and embrace the reality of that space. So let's say that, you know, it's like, okay, we are now at a point where we have to, you know, we're having another baby. So this space where we used to have all our toys now needs to be a nursery. And so their toys are going to have to go in their room. Okay. So we know what the space is that's in this other room, and I'm relocating these toys, I know that that space is finite. And so I'm going to pick my very favorite, or involve the kids, however you want to do it, pick the very favorite toys and take those in the first trip, put them there. Okay. Oh, okay. Now I'm kind of seeing I have less space than I thought I did, or, oh, I've got more space than I did. And then go get the next batch, single armful of favorites, and go get those into this space. So I go through the same process for that. Like I said at the beginning, I don't make up new stuff. I just apply the same process to all the situations. Okay. It is not laminated unless you want to laminate it. It is a printable flowchart. So I do not have a copy of it here with me. It was the publisher hired an artist to do it for me. Okay. When this book came out, so it was a pre-order bonus for organizing for the rest of us. Obviously, this book came out I think 2 years ago. I think it's been over 2 years now. Anyway, this book has been out for a while, but if you have the book, or if you want to get the book, the audio, Kindle, whatever, email us, aslobcomesclean@gmail.com with a screenshot of the book or whatever. And for this book, it's not always the case, but for this book, even if you get it from the library, okay, but screenshot or take a picture of the book or whatever and send it to us by email, and my assistant will send you the printable of the flowchart. And the flowchart is okay, here's this item. Is it trash? No. Okay. Is it? And then it takes you through the process that way. People love it. But yeah, you can laminate it. That'd be great. You could also Mod Podge it onto something on a stand, but that might turn into clutter. But okay, less is success. Exactly. You got it. Love, love, love your no mess decluttering method. I applied this process to help declutter my church's children's ministry storage area. I sent your videos and podcasts to those helping me. Yay. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. I just wanted to thank you for your advice. It's been so helpful in actually getting the stuff done and not just making my stuff explode in the middle of all rooms. That's the beauty of it, right? That's the reason I came up with this process, was because in my own home, that was my big struggle. It was every time I try to declutter, I end up making things worse. Okay, so yeah, this space looks better, but these other 5 spaces where I dragged all the stuff looks worse. So this process keeps that from happening. Love it. Let's see. I watched you on Mel Robbins. Yeah, that was such a good interview, right? I'm not saying on my part, she is an amazing interviewer. I've done some great interviews with a lot of great people, but they were so prepared. They knew exactly what to ask. So anyway, okay, sorry. I've been dealing with debilitating depression since COVID and the loss of my dad. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry that you're going through that. I know it needs to get done, but I can't even start. How do I find the start? Okay. This is the beauty of the no mess process, and the beauty of the fact that we count less and better as success. The best way to motivate yourself is to experience success. Okay. So we're going to change our definition of success, and we're going to say, if this space has less in it than when I started, I will be happy. Oh, I mean, I don't know. There's probably all kinds of things with the be happy, right? But I will count that as success. By definition, one thing leaving this space means I have successfully decluttered. I'm not done, but I have been successful in decluttering because something has left. Okay. So changing that mindset of, instead of looking at where you want it to be, of course you want it to be, maybe back to what it was like before you went through this experience. Maybe what your friend's house is like. You're like, this is what I want. But then you see where you are right now, and the distance between those is so vast that it's just overwhelming, and it makes it hard to start. So instead, thinking of your goal as being letter and best, sorry, better and less. That's what I was going to say. Your goal is better and less. And then knowing that Throwing away trash counts. It absolutely counts as decluttering because it's going to have to be done anyway, right? Even if you're like, no, I actually don't have any trash. Wasn't what I was talking about. Still look for trash, because what that does is it immediately allows you to make real progress that you can count as progress, because you say, okay, what in this space is trash? Is there any trash? And I'm not asking you to decide that something's trash, because that can feel so daunting. Decisions are exhausting when you're going through what you're going through, right? So instead of deciding that something's trash, instead say, I'm just going to look for the most obvious trash. There's probably not any, but I'm still going to look, because that is part of the process. Most likely you're going to find something. Everything that leaves is a little tiny bit of progress, which builds a little tiny bit of momentum. Okay. Then the other thing that happens, let's say that there was no trash. There's always trash, but let's say there was no trash. Even though there wasn't trash, there was still value in looking for trash, because you were looking for something with you were saying, I'm not having to make any emotional decisions. I'm literally just looking for trash. I'm not having to do anything daunting. I am literally just seeing, is there any trash in here? But when you do that, you're looking, and looking at the space is a huge deal. When you felt overwhelmed, what happens to me and what happens to a lot of people is you feel overwhelmed by a space, and it feels easier to do this, right? Like, I'm just going to not look at it. Like, I literally, y'all, I talked about it on Instagram months and months and months ago, but I had a mouse in my closet at one point. And I had the mouse trap, okay, that was on the floor in there. And I'm very thankful that my husband's willing to handle all that, right? But for months, I guess that the mouse just decided to go somewhere else. I don't know, because I didn't see any more evidence and we never actually caught him. But for months, you know, when I was like, okay, one of these days he's going to be caught, I would literally walk into my closet like this. I'm like, I can't see it. I can't look, whatever. But like, I have the ability to very consciously ignore things. But the problem with that was that I would do that a lot with my space. I'm overwhelmed by that, so I'm just not going to look at it. But then when I happen to actually look over there, it's grown even more with every minute that I haven't, done anything. So, and then it builds the overwhelm, and it's just this really bad cycle. So looking is a huge part of it, because I have looked, and I've just looked for trash. But as I've looked for trash, I've started to see what's actually in this pile. And even though I'm not making any decisions, I'm not doing anything else at this point, my brain now knows what's in this pile, which means that walking away from it, it is no longer as overwhelming, because it's not the unknown anymore. Okay. So there's tons of all kinds of facets of value in the look for trash stage. And just remember, it's look for trash, not decide what's trash. It's look for obvious trash and give yourself permission to get just that out of there and to consider that success. And that will start the ball rolling. And then you might be ready to move to the next step, easy stuff. Okay. So really focus in on the 5-step process. I know you're not the biggest fan of wait and see boxes, but do you think they're useful when you get stuck but want to keep momentum going? No. Okay, so it's fine. Like, you do whatever you want to do whatever works for you. So if wait and see boxes work for you, okay, great. They do not work for me, and so I do not teach it. Here's what I suggest instead. Skip it. Because our goal is less and better, and we are not under any delusion that I'm going to have this space perfect by such and such date. Instead, I'm just like, no, I'm celebrating less and better every step along the way. That's just what I'm doing. Okay. Because I'm doing that, I can skip the hard things, because what we don't want to do, and I think that the reason people use the wait and see box is so that you don't get stuck. This is how I don't get stuck. I say, I'm going to skip that item and I'm going to move on to the next thing because I don't want to stop the momentum. I don't want to stop the process. And if I get stuck on an item and I'm like, well, I have to make a decision about these fingernail clippers and I don't know, and you know, then that's what I don't want. So if I'm like, okay, where would I look for these first? Oh, I don't have a place where I would look for them first. Okay, well then I need to put them in the donate box because I would never think to go looking for them. But I can't put it in the donate. Okay, skip it. Move to the next thing. Pick up another item because we're going one item at a time anyway. So that's fine, right? Like we haven't pulled everything out and now we have to decide what to do with it or put it back in. You know, we're just going one item at a time anyway. We're making it have less, making it be better. So that's how I do it, is the skipping. Okay. Do you make new systems for places that consistently get recluttered? Trying to follow how my family operates, but these spaces get so overwhelming time after time. Okay, so if a space consistently gets out of control, it has too much stuff in it. That is my definition of clutter. Anything that consistently gets out of control. I can't handle it, okay? So when a space gets recluttered, I declutter a little bit further. And declutter a little bit further, okay? And decluttering means getting stuff out of the house and making sure that it's in its actual real home according to where would I look for it first, okay? So in spaces that lots of people use, I declutter down to the lowest clutter threshold of the people who use that space, okay? So if it's constantly getting out of control, we do that. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not gonna be like, oh, well, papers get put here, so I'm going to put a tray to serve as a container, like a visible actual, oh, wow, yes, we've got to go through that because, you know, there's getting more than's in the container, all that kind of stuff. That doesn't mean that I don't do that, but my rule is, yes, if a space is consistently getting out of control, I have to declutter it more, to get more stuff out. How do you know when you get under your clutter threshold from decluttering? Will there be an epiphany moment where we realize we managed to get there? I think I'm close, but you still feel overwhelmed. Yeah. Yes, you'll have a moment where you realize, oh, I can do this. I can keep my house under control. That's what happened to me. That's where I came up with the term clutter threshold. Was like, oh, I did not know the power that decluttering was going to have for making me feel like I could handle my house. Okay. So, yeah. What was I talking about? Oh, and the 5-minute pickup. That's what, sorry. The 5-minute pickup. If you want which I see, I don't know how recent your picture is with your cute, adorable baby, but, like sometimes you're like, but just give me something tangible. 5-minute pickup. If a 5-minute pickup gets the house back under control and makes you not overwhelmed anymore, great. Because here's the other thing too. It has never been and will never be an issue of nothing in my house ever being out of place, because that is just, that's fighting a losing battle for me, right? So, but the 5 minutes of purposeful picking up and putting away, if that gets the house where it needs to be consistently, okay, then I'm under my clutter threshold. So if 5 minutes is like, yeah, that I try 5, not what you think would happen, but actually try the 5 minutes and you're like, yeah, that's nowhere near. You got to get rid of more stuff. Okay. Okay. Let's see. I'm moving overseas from the US to New Zealand. How fun is that? I love New Zealand. It is incredibly beautiful. With 2 boys. I have to get rid of almost everything I own. Tips on hardcore decluttering. Looking forward to a new chance at starting fresh. Okay, so if you are going that far, it really becomes a matter of what's your packing like? I mean, are you taking 2 suitcases or are you packing, you know, this number of boxes or a crate or whatever? I know there's different international shipping things, and that's your container. So it's like the first thing to do is establish the container, figure out what can I afford to take with me. And then that is the container. That's the limited space. And you put your favorite things in first. And once it's full, right? And if it's full and you're like, oh, but I do have to take that. Well, then you have to one in, one out to create the space. So it's actually a huge gift that you are going to be having a very definite amount of space of stuff that you can take, and just put your favorite things in first and acknowledge the realities of that, so that when something else comes up, you're like, well, everything in here is a favorite that I really want to take, and yet I need this thing. So what is the least favorite out of this that I can put there? Okay. Let's see. Yes, like we were talking about earlier, too many choices makes it really difficult to know what your favorite things are. Let's see. I find it hard not to organize while decluttering, but to take it there now. I mean, here's the thing. If you follow the 5-step decluttering process, the end result is that the space is functional. And that's why I was like, oh, I'm just going to declutter. And then my space ends up being what I want it to be just by decluttering. So, hey, let's see. I don't know which answer it was, but there we go. Oh, and you use brand name soap from the dishwasher. Yeah, I'm not going to like give you a specific kind to use, but when they told me that, no, it makes a big difference to use the more expensive actual dishwashing, tabs or tablets or whatever, I was like, oh, okay. Cause I mean, I am a cheapskate and I do not like spending money. So, but it makes a huge enough difference that I'm like, yeah, it's worth it. It's actually worth the money. So, yay. Let's see here. How do you get past the issue where you love clothes, but you don't wear them, but you have the room? Focus on your clutter threshold. I mean, like, I am not one to be like, if you don't wear it, get rid of it. I'm like, I got stuff. Y'all, my best friend, who's my assistant, who will send you the flowchart if you email, with your proof of having this, right? She helped me declutter my closet one time. And I was like, so, she was laying on the bed and I was bringing stuff out to show her, like, one at a time. This is years and years and years ago, before I had my whole process, right? And she would just get to the point where she was like, are you kidding me, Danny? Because I was like, well, but this is a costume. Well, but this could be a costume. But this could be a costume. I'm like, you know what? I get to do that because it's my closet, it's my space. So I'm not ever going to be like, you shouldn't have this, you shouldn't have that. If you have the space, great. But the thing to think about is, does this make it harder for you to keep your house under control? Does having a lot of clothes mean that your laundry piles are always huge because you don't actually have to do laundry? You just go get another thing out of the closet. So for me, I needed to have fewer clothes because having more clothes was over my clutter threshold. Clothing can be clutter. I literally did not know that before I got started on this. Like, I didn't know it, but that's part of my definition. Anything that continually gets out of control is clutter. That's how I figured out clothes could be clutter. So is this making your life harder? Now, do what you want. And if you're like, if it's honestly bothering you, then get rid of your least favorites until it doesn't bother you anymore. If it's making your life harder, get rid of your least favorites until you get to the point where you're like, okay, I can handle this amount of clothing and keep this under control, laundry wise and all that. But just be sure that you're not like, well, people on the internet say that I should only have this, this, and this. And I'm not going to say that. If you got space and you can handle it, you're good. All right. Oh, thank you. Says, I always tell everyone your books are the best self-help books I've ever read. Love it. Okay. I've made huge progress in my apartment. Yay. When the rooms look good, I'll bring up new things from my basement to go through, and then it always gets overwhelming again. The whole decluttering thing. Yeah, I mean, I totally get it. What I would maybe do is say, okay, and I know this is annoying with the basement, because you're going downstairs and you're coming back up. I've always dreamed of having a basement, but oh well. We don't have them in Texas. So, but I would say open a box down there. Down there, within the box, take out the trash, take out the donations, and then, gather up easy stuff, only what you can carry in your hands, easy stuff that you do know where it goes, and you carry that stuff up and put it in its easy spot that's already established. You're not having to make a decision. And then go down and, okay, if I needed this item by item, and I know it's annoying, but the reason that I'm saying that, especially for you and I, we all have different situations and stuff like that, but it's because you've made huge progress in your apartment and the rooms look good. Like you like it the way it is, which means that the vast majority of stuff in those boxes is probably going to be trash and dead donations, right? Because you like your house the way it is. You like your apartment the way it is. So eliminating that stuff down there and not ever bringing it up there. But when you do bring it up, you're only bringing up minimal things, and you know where you're going to put it, either according to it has an established home, or I've identified where I would look for it first. And then as you put it in there, one item at a time, not a bunch, then you put this, okay, so this crystal vase or vase that was in this box. Oh yeah, where would I look for that first? Well, I would look for it. I'm just thinking of me, under my kitchen sink, which is where I put my vases for when flowers, when I get flowers. So I go to put it there, and you face the reality of that. You face okay, I've already got 3 vases and I never use it, and I like that. Okay. But you face the reality item by items, because you don't want to overwhelm and undo the huge progress that you've made. So yeah. Let's see. Let's see. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Okay, so I'll read what this says. Teenage son died. It is difficult to get rid of last pieces of his. Not sure if I will ever be ready. It feels as though he is being erased from the world. His clothes and stuff need to be dealt with. Okay. I wouldn't, getting rid of last pieces, I'm not sure where in the process you are right now. But what space do I have in my home to devote to the things that I want to keep? Okay. Is it a tub? Is it this closet, this cabinet? These are going to be the things that I'm going to keep, because you're going to want to keep some things, and you are definitely not ready yet to get through the last of it. Okay. But it says his clothes and stuff need to be dealt with. So if you're at the very beginning of this process, let's talk about it from 2 different perspectives, because I don't know exactly where you are. Again, I am not a mental health professional, and probably this is something that would be something you should talk to your mental health professional about, right? But as far as from the decluttering aspect of this, I always say, don't start with the sentimental stuff. Okay. So even though it's like, okay, here we are, here's a room that maybe I'm scared to walk into right now, I just can't deal with it. Give yourself permission to say, okay, for now, when I feel that, I should be decluttering, and then my brain goes to that and it stops me from doing anything, do other stuff that have nothing to do with his things. Work in your entryway, work in your living room, declutter your kitchen, do something that's not sentimental like that, because it will allow you to be making real progress that needs to be made anyway. And it will move you to the point someday where you might be ready to face that stuff. But what happens a lot of times is you think about that thing that is truly the most daunting thing anyone could ever face, is what you're facing. Okay. You think about that thing and it's so overwhelming that you can't do anything. So I would say, give yourself permission to say, I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to focus on these things that are not emotional for me, because that means that during this time, before I'm ready to deal with that stuff, I have actually made some other progress, which starts to change how I feel about things and people and my home and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's what I would say. If you are at that very end, like if you have dealt with a bunch of things and you really are down to the last few things, give it a special place. Give it a real home. Say this, these items deserve space because I am not, I don't want it. He's not erased. This stuff deserves space in my home. What deserves space less than this? And then, give it that space. But it depends on where you are in this process. So again, I'm very sorry. Let's see. Okay. Love this. Love your system. Went on vacation and helped my brother and sister get started. Now at home working on my own mess. Much easier now that I have practiced on the siblings. That is awesome. That's hilarious. I love it. Okay. Love this. The before and after photos help so much in seeing progress. Sometimes I don't even see it until I check the photos. Better is better. This is such a great point, Ricky. I absolutely have experienced exactly what you're saying, which is the reason I tell people to do it. And that is especially in these moments where you are feeling overwhelmed. We've had some people with some pretty heavy life situations, right? In these moments where you're overwhelmed and you think, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try throwing away trash in a non-emotional spot in my house. There is no way that's going to make a difference. Take a picture, throw away trash for 5 minutes, and take another picture at the end of 5 minutes. See if it makes a difference. See that it makes a difference. It changes things. It really does. To see, oh, I did not expend any emotional energy. That was actually not hard. I didn't feel like I was hardly doing anything. And yet, wow, look at the difference between, that's me doing that on my phone, right? Look at the difference between this 5 minutes. Look at the impact of these 5 minutes. And that will change how you see future things. Okay. I'm looking for a couple more questions. I don't have a whole lot more time left. Every night I say, Nikki, didn't I say it last week? I just love your colorful headshot. I don't know what's that called? Icon, blah, blah, blah. Picture. That'd be a good thing. Every night I say, tomorrow I'm going to do some of this decluttering, and it never happens. Life happens. What can I do to make it happen? All right. I get it. And this is the reason why I came up with this particular method that does not require preparation. It does not require setting aside a certain amount of time. It does not require mustering up energy or oomph or any of that. It is literally, I'm going to throw away trash and I will have considered myself successful. Okay. So that means every night when you say, tomorrow I'm going to do some of this decluttering, instead of saying tomorrow I'm going to do it, say, okay, there is literally no way this will make a difference, but I'm going to go to the most visible space in my house. I'm going to go to the front door or wherever people enter, and I'm going to just throw away trash for 5 minutes. So instead of thinking of all the things I'm going to do tomorrow, I'm going to take that time that I would spend thinking about what I should do tomorrow and instead throw away trash for 5 minutes in the most visible space in my house. That is how you get started. Okay. So there's so much power in that. There is no planning needed, whatever. Do I listen to music or podcasts when doing dishes to make the chore less boring? Any tips? Absolutely. Oh yeah. I mean, but also make sure that you are acknowledging that dishes math is a thing in case, and I don't know, I always hate to assume anything. I'm just saying kind of, what would I be saying if I had asked this question? If I had asked this question, a lot of what I'd be saying is dishes are overwhelming to me. I put them off and put them off. What could I do to make them not so overwhelming and make me actually be willing to get in there and do that? But once I got dishes under control, I realized, oh, dishes were not the daunting task that was worth putting off to me because it was going to take me forever. Instead, by doing the dishes every day, I realized, oh, it takes me like 15, 20 minutes to do the dishes. of course I listen to podcasts while I do that, but I have so much less to gear myself up for because, of that. So let's see. I think this will be our last question. I'm helping my mom begin to declutter her house. When I have her take something where she'd look for it first, it becomes an avalanche of things that aren't where they belong, and it distracts her. Some of y'all know what I would call this, right? It's my friend Cliff calls it. He told me this is what he called it in his mom's house, was a crap-a-lanche, right? Which is like, all this stuff falls down. Okay, not saying that for your mom, but let's see. Okay, so go with her to take it to the place where she would look for it first. And we are going to not make that space any worse. Okay, we're not just going to add to, because that ends up being how you just stuff shift, right? So I'm going to take this item to where she would look for it first. We're going to go together. I'm going to say, okay, this space is a project that needs to happen, right? Right, Mom? Okay, so what in this space is trash? Is there any trash here that you could take out that will make the space for this item that you would look for first here? Okay. Oh yeah, there's some trash. Or is there a donation in this space that, would create the space that we need for this item that you would look for there first? As you do that, the trash and the donate box are back at the space you originally decluttering, so it takes you back to that space. All right. But that's how we make that incremental progress. This is what I call, what did I call it? I did a podcast on it recently. Net gains. Net gains. My house is gaining overall. I am not making one space worse at the expense of another. I'm not getting distracted. I am moving the whole house forward a little bit, but this is how I do that. The other thing too is that when she goes there and she realizes, I don't want to take, it can often reveal that this item that I was like, oh yeah, I would look for that here. Okay, well then let's go do it. This is basically my parenting strategy too. Like my kids are like, well, I want to do this or this. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And they're like, oh. I'm like, okay, you say you want to do this? Let's go. Let's do it. And generally that will either make them go, oh yeah, okay, I actually did it. This was fun. Or, oh yeah, that's not really what I thought it was, right? Like it's just life. So I'm like, let's do it. Oh, you say you would look for this first there. Let's go to that space. Okay, what are you willing to get rid of for this? Oh, I'm not actually willing to get rid of anything for this. Okay, well then this thing is not as important as you thought, but say it much more nicely than that, right? Because I was going from my mom mode and that made it a little bit sassier, but you're talking with your mom, so that's different. Okay, I hope this has been helpful. Let's see. Okay, I love this. I have had times when 2 minutes was all I could manage. I would do the drawer my toothbrush lives in when I was there. I love it. Like, yes, it's amazing. 5 minutes, if 5 minutes is too much, do 2 minutes. If 2 minutes is too much, do 1 minute. Do one item. Like knowing that when I have the thought to declutter, I can do it immediately is so incredibly powerful. So incredibly powerful. Okay. All right. I'm going to have to stop there. But it's been fun. Y'all are great. Y'all are really, really great. Anyway, I'm not going to blather on. But if you're watching this later, don't forget that you can ask questions at askdannykWhite.com. If you're not able to come to these lives, then I usually, didn't today, but usually take some questions from there to answer. Don't forget too that I have coaches. So if you need someone to coach you through the 5-step process, to lead you through it the way that I do in my 1 Hour Better videos, you can find a coach who is trained by me in my method. Everybody at declutteringcoaches.com. Sometimes people think, oh, well, which ones are your coaches? Oh no, I own that. That is me. Like it's all me. Those are all my people on declutteringcoaches.com. There's a map. You can find people around you, see if there's somebody who come actually to your house to help you, or most of them also coach virtually. So you can do that. Okay. All right. I will talk to y'all next week. I think should be. My deadline's coming up. Anyway, talk to y'all later. Bye.